Good morning, ladies. Thank you for coming early this morning. I love it when I address a group of women, right? The diversity in the crowd's amazing. What I'm referring to is what you're wearing. Look at the color, right? Yeah, we got some blues, we got some red. When it's guys out there, what do we got? You know, maybe a suit, maybe a tie. Okay. So I'm Deb Tillet. Thank you for coming this morning. We're going to talk about women, leadership, and there are three fascinating women here on the panel. They're going to talk to you about themselves and their background. Why me? Why are we talking to you today? Well, I have had 6 successful startups myself, always an entrepreneurial career. 20 plus of those years were in and around computer gaming. So if you want to talk about women in tech and an interesting time and time travel, we're talking about computer gaming in the 1980s and early 1990s. So that's why me. Today, I run the City of Baltimore's Technology and Innovation Center, ETC. So we help startups go and grow. A couple of the panelists here, and they'll introduce themselves, have actually had the odyssey of coming through the ETC a little before my time, but nonetheless, very successful, and it was a great collaboration. So I wanted to start today. Our topic is, I think like a leader, act like a business. Not sure what that means really, but we're going to try and figure it out. And so I'm struck by. I did a little research. I figured out that the definition of a leader is something that leads. Okay, that doesn't tell us much, does it? It's also a primary or terminal shoot of a plant. What the heck does that mean? I guess that's when it's a noun. But then I looked at business, and what does that mean? A person's regular occupation, profession, or trade. That makes a little more sense, right? So that's kind of the context in what we're talking about today. But I also thought when we were talking about women and leadership, I have some quotes from 3 really dynamic women. Leadership should be more participative than directive, more enabling than performing. A woman named Mary D. Poole. I love this one. I'm endlessly fascinated that playing football is considered a training ground for leadership, but raising children isn't, right? Okay, and that's the former White House Press Secretary Dee Dee Myers. And then many women live like it's a dress rehearsal. Ladies, the curtain is up and you are on, right? It's time to do it now. So with that said, one last quote, and then I want to introduce these fascinating women to you. But McKinsey just came out with a recent report that said advancing women's equality can add $12 trillion, with a T, trillion dollars to global growth. So that's why you're here. That's what we're here to talk about. And that's why you are so important. Not just today, not just to what we're doing, but for the future, $12 trillion, right? Globally. Okay, enough for me. So let me introduce you to, let's start here with Joanne, right? So they didn't know which way I was going, so there you go. So Joanne, tell us who you are. Why are you here? Why should we listen to you? And I know why, but let them know.
Why should you listen to me? That's a good question. So my name is Joanne Lang. I'm the founder of a new investment accelerator for women. It's called Colliders, when 2 atoms collide. So go to colliders.org. Everybody's welcome to sign up for the content. It's a very different kind of virtual accelerator. But my background and why I was able to found an accelerator, an investment accelerator, is prior to this I founded 2 or 3 companies. I founded a company called About One. It's the world's only family management cloud platform. I raised about $5 million in venture capital. I was a Forbes top 10 women to watch Philly's coolest startup companies. I write for the Huffington Post, the Wall Street Journal, a plethora of other sites that I blog and write for. And we were the top 10 web companies in the world to watch for 2 years running. So I'm also on an advisory board for an app called Flex IT, which is like an Uber for tech contractors. So when I founded About One, I couldn't find enough tech contractors for that company. And a smaller startup called Dividu, which is like a to-do app for volunteers. So that's my background.
Great, thank you. Really, very impressive. I don't know, let's go. Kerry?
All right.
Kerry Nagle.
Hi, I'm Kerry Nagle, and I'll start with my background. I was an analyst for advertising.com in its early days. Advertising.com was later acquired, one of the biggest network acquisitions at that point in time, by AOL. From there, I moved on to Millennial Media. Many of you have, I'm sure, in the area heard of Millennial, based over in Canton, one of the ETC companies that Deb was talking about. I was number 14th at that company. We were around $5 million then. I was there for about 7 years, ran operations for the company, moved over into our sales team on the publisher side, did corporate M&A, actually worked on our IPO, was on the NYSE floor for it. We went public in about 5 years. We were about 342 million by that point in time, one of the fastest IPOs ever to go by Morgan Stanley. And then from there, I lived abroad for the company and launched international. I lived in Singapore for about 6 months and launched our Asian offices and our European offices. From there, I moved to Straighterline, where I'm currently the COO, and another ETC company as well, one of the incubator companies there. And at this company, what we are doing is low-cost higher ed. So we are the fastest growing online EDU companies in the US right now, and we provide a subscription model where you pay $99 a month and you pay per course on top of that. Most courses are around $49. And so it's gen ed classes. We transfer into about 100 different colleges and universities across the United States, and we serve about 15,000 students per year. So really excited to be here today. Have been a part now of 3 wildly successful companies, and Straighterline much the same as the other 2, and crossed a couple different industries at this point.
Great, thank you. And last but certainly not least, Ann Balduzzi. Ann, tell us about your impressive background.
So I'll do mine in chronological order, starting with my first job out of college, which I was incredibly lucky because I got an opportunity to work at a joint venture called Viewtron. It was headed by AT&T and Knight Ridder newspapers, and this was about a decade before the internet, and we were basically pioneering the internet in those early days. So we were the first to do online banking, online
Some of
shopping,
you weren't born yet.
online auctions, online travel, education, you name it. We were pioneering what the internet was pretty much going to be. From there, I was hired by Steve Case to go be one of the first people at AOL. It actually wasn't even called AOL yet. It was called Quantum Computer Services back in those days. It was a little more than a dozen employees, so a chance to work under Steve Case was a lot of great lessons learned that I'll share with you in a few minutes. But and then AOL signed a joint venture with Apple, and I ended up moving to Apple and Silicon Valley, becoming a product manager with Apple, launching and developing their first online service, which was called Apple Inc. Personal Edition. A little after leaving Apple, I created my own consulting firm called Accelerate Partners because the internet was just starting to, go bonkers and boom around the world, and I wanted to be a part of it still. So I was on the advisory board of a voice over IP startup. I was on the advisory board of a mobile tech company. I got to launch international data centers around the world, which was kind of the backbone of the internet. Also worked with a variety of hardware and software companies that were all internet-based, and then became a mentor for the Emerging Tech Center. And that even exposed me to biotech companies. And working with all these entrepreneurs actually gave me the courage to become an entrepreneur myself. And so I, along the way, launched my own startup company just a few years ago called Same Grain. And founding Same Grain was an incredible learning experience. Still learning, it's still growing. But for those of you who have an iOS device, it's a free app. And it matches people on over 45 million different areas. So you can find people for future roommates, teammates, travel companions, or just other people that might share multiple things in common with you. We even match people that have rare illnesses to each other. And we also match female entrepreneurs. So if you're interested in using the app, we have a section on it that's designed just for females looking to connect and network.
Great, thank you. Thank you, ladies. The other thing I would tell you is if you leave here today and do nothing else, learn nothing else, have nothing else, if you don't try and connect with the four of us on LinkedIn, sorry for you, right? Okay, so I'm going to let us chat sort of amongst ourselves around the topic of, how you see leadership and some of the issues with women in leadership. And then, honestly, I really want to throw it open to you in the audience, because ask these guys some questions, right? That's going to be, I think, the most interesting and neat part of today. The other thing I wanted to share is, again, it's so interesting to me, but female entrepreneurs start with 1/8 of the funding that male counterparts do, right? And yet, only 5% of startup companies are owned by women, and yet, in that, the revenue is up and exceeds male-owned enterprises by over 12%, right? So we're doing something right, and we know it. And so if I think about it, Kerry, you were talking about it, and our topic today is think like a leader. That's really interesting. You might tell us a little bit about what you think leadership is. But then the other piece of it is, but act like a business, right? How have you managed your own career, right? Have you thought about it in those terms? Maybe not in those terms exactly, but so tell us,
Sure.
what your path is.
So I thought a lot about when I first heard about the panel and the topic, and I thought, boy, I'm a little confused. What does it mean to think like a leader and act like a business? And it took me a couple minutes to equate the two. But if you think about a business, right, and you think especially about a startup, you create a board and an advisory board. And what's the goal of an advisory board or a board for that company? It's to help. It's to guide. It's to be somebody you bounce things off of. You talk about strategy. You talk about leadership. You talk about your employees. A whole host of things that helps drive that company. So let's put it on you now, right? So your own personal life, act like a business. Develop a board for yourself of leaders and people that you can surround yourself to bounce things off of, to get guidance, to talk about things, to mentor you, to give you opportunities, whether it be a networking opportunity, a career opportunity, just an introduction to somebody that they know that might have a different way of looking at things. And that's really kind of what I think about with this topic. So how do you start to do that? And I'll go into some of the things through my career. I always look at some of the mistakes that I've made, and I talk about that because I love people to learn from my mistakes and go, gosh, I wish I had done that. So I think, for you to develop an advisory board or, act like a business, right, to develop your leadership skills, first thing is work as hard as you can. So take every opportunity that comes around you, and that could be an opportunity that you're really uncomfortable with, something that is outside of your box. Take it. Try it, explore opportunities, and work really hard for them. That will develop your skill set. It will introduce you possibly to new people. Watch and learn the leaders around you, whether it be your direct manager, your manager's manager, a friend's manager in a different company, the leaders around you, panels like this. Learn and absorb and soak in how do they catapult their careers up? What were the things that they did to move their career, and learn those leadership skills. The other thing is when you seek your advisory board, equating it to a business, is seek diversity. Don't just come to your comfort zone. Well, it's a woman and she thinks like me and she talks like me. Again, push yourself to get those kind of leaders that can add something new and guide you.
Kerry, I want to jump in here. I don't mean to cut you off, but I think that's a really critical piece of the puzzle. Don't just go find the comfort zone. And the one thing that I think I learned over the years, and being in a man's world, you have to learn to speak a different language, right? They speak a foreign language. So if that's the case, when you go to a foreign country, the thing you need to do is understand that there's a different language, there's a different way of communicating. And so one of the things that has served me extremely well, what does it mean? Well, I can drop the F-bomb just like anybody else can, but I know that you learn to speak their language. And so, that's critical. It isn't just surround yourself with people that you're comfortable with. Joanne, where are you in moving a career forward, not unlike a business?
So I think that's a good question, and I wanted to add to your comment about the advisory board. I think one of the things I was told to do, and it follows actually on from what Cecily said earlier, and I did this, I really sat down and did this myself years ago, and I said, where do I want to be in 10 years? Where do I want to be in 5 years, and how does this translate backwards? How does it translate into where I am right now? What are the skills that I have missing? And then who can fill those skills? And often I went to look for advisors, and often the advisors that I thought, I want that advisor, I didn't know them, I'd never heard of them, I'd never met them, I would look at them online. One of them was a huge woman investor in Utah. There was very few in healthcare at the time, and my platform was related to family health. And I reached out to this woman, I stalked her online, I looked for her, and in the end, I ended up finding a group around her and having one of those people introduce me to her. And it took me 8 months to find the right person that would mentor me, but she fit into the right skill set. And I think that it's really important to understand where you want to go. And you don't always get there, okay, here's the line I'm going. You kind of have different pathways, and different mentors fit into different sections.
Well, that's critical too. Just because the path goes like this doesn't mean that isn't going to get you where you need to go. And what did we hear Kerry say earlier? You win some, you lose some, right? But it doesn't mean you don't get back at it. And talk to me about that.
Well, I like to say you have to inoculate yourself against negative forces. We all like to think positive, and by all means do, but negative things are going to happen to you. So don't let them derail your dreams or your ideas or your networking or whatever it is you want to put out there. Make sure that you put on that Teflon suit and you go out there, and when failure hits you, embrace it. Because you want to actually be taking risk, be as risky as you possibly can be. And I don't mean go bungee jump off a building or anything like that. I'm talking about professional risk. But when it comes to being a risk taker, you have to get to the point where you're feeling comfortable with feeling uncomfortable on a regular basis. Because that tells you that you are then taking enough risk with your career. You're out there putting yourself on the front line. You don't want to spend too much time aiming or sitting back and sort of thinking, oh, should I do it this way? Should I do it this way? Or, kind of setting up your business plan. You have to act on that business plan. You can write your business plan for yourself all day, all night, but if you don't start to act on that business plan, it just becomes an idea that sits on a shelf. So you really want to, innovation without implementation is a hallucination, is a phrase I once heard. So go out there and start putting yourself out there and do the networking, do things that feel uncomfortable, and then you're taking the right risk.
The other thing that's really critical, or at least was for me in my career, is I always put the thing on my boss's desk before he asked for it, right? Because you're in the same meetings, you're hearing the same thing. There's a lot of other people in that room, but I used to leave the meeting and do it. Everybody else was just talking about it, right? So I left the meeting and I did it, and I put it on his chair or on his desk before he even asked for the report, right? So what are you doing? You're anticipating, you're feeling it, you're moving forward. Kerry, I don't know.
Yeah.
Where do you want to go from there?
I agree with that. So, like I talked about, is take every opportunity, work as hard as you can. And part of that is, see something before somebody else sees it, and don't just sit back, don't be passive. Just step up and do it. Just do the thing. It might be useful, maybe it's not. That's okay. And that's how you push yourself forward, and also building up your brand. That's important. Your brand, and I talk about this all the time in my company, is your ROI. You're an employee and you have leaderships, right, around you. And so they're looking at you of what you are contributing to that company, to the community, to the company's brand. And look at your brand. What are you doing for yourself to expand your skill set? And what are you doing for your ROI to contribute? So I think always looking about how you can contribute, how you can take a step forward. The other thing I'd also say, and it was a comment a little bit ago, is, and Deb even said, hey, link us in. Follow up on intros Take any intro you can have. So I talked about mistakes, and I was very much for 7 years at Millennial, head down, into that company, pushing, grinding. Okay, there's a networking. I don't have time. I've just got to do this because it's due tomorrow. I don't have time. It was one of the biggest mistakes I ever did. Because when I wanted to take that next step, yes, I had a few advisors at that company and a few in my network, but I hadn't expanded and diversified my network. And I had been given all these opportunities where somebody was willing to put their name out there for me and say, this is somebody you should talk to. And if you have an opportunity, make the time and follow up quickly. Follow up very quickly. The leaders who you want to talk with and embrace you and help you propel your career forward, they're busy. And so if somebody has taken even 2 minutes to write an email or a phone call or give a number or link you in, seize that opportunity.
That's huge. And what I do, otherwise it gets away from you, and this is just a trick, it's a tip. You meet someone, they give you that business card before you get home, and now you can do it, right? With the cell phone. You have a thank you email to that person saying, hey, it was great meeting you. Love to get together again sometime. If they never respond, fine. But you did. You said thank you for that connection, and you were right there. Joanne, go on that with me for a little bit. Sometimes people will say it's not what you know, it's who you know. Don't take that lightly.
No, I think your connections are really important, but I think sometimes people find meeting those connections hard. So when I hear networking, it makes me hot and sweaty, and it's like trying to date in high school. And so there's some of the things that I found really useful.
I gotta go home and go like crash after you do that, right?
So some of the things I found really useful to help me with networking, because I just find it hard, are to volunteer. So volunteer in the organization. You meet every single senior person. They're generally very, very senior in business, and because you're volunteering to help them, you come in on a common pathway. And I think the other thing, actually, can I just comment on something Anne said? I loved her comments about failure. You really have to learn when somebody says no to you. First of all, you have to go after many, many, many people and expect to hear lots of no's. When somebody says no to you, you have to go back and ask them why.
I put that in the email if I'm looking. I say, I hope that you can, but remember, I can take no for an answer, right? Because you have to be able to take no for an answer.
And I think when you get the no, if you ask why is this a no? And then the biggest tip from my side is you never marry on your first date, or at least my husband married me on my first date. And so you have to date people. You have to date people for a while. So if somebody says no to a request, ask them why, and then say, please, can I put you on my distribution list? And 99.99% will say yes. And then every month, just send out a little newsletter, even if it's one paragraph. When you are helping somebody, it's the nicest thing in the world to receive a little newsletter saying what you did with their help or what their status is. And then eventually, maybe a no turns into a yes. It's just they need to date you for a little bit longer.
That's a great analogy. Anybody want to add to this here in the panel? And then I really do want you to participate. So go ahead, Ann, and then we'll take some questions.
Just a couple of quick footnotes. Every positive thing that has happened throughout my entire career, I can draw a direct line back to a networking opportunity that I attended. Every single thing. And by the way, by virtue of the fact that you all here are in this room, that means you get networking. And women are naturally good networkers, so I applaud yourselves for being here first and foremost. But
you are now 1 degree of separation from Steve Case. Think of it in those terms.
Anyway, but when you draw that line back to those networking events, it may just be a piece of information you learn for the event. It may be a person you met, and that person may not actually be the person that ends up helping you, but it may be somebody they knew as a friend of a friend of a friend. And if I draw those lines, it creates this whole friend network of people I don't even know, but they knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody who ended up being able to help me. And then at the same time, you're able to, at those networking events, to talk about your business or your brand and get your own self-worth out there and what your skill sets out and how you may be able to help other people.
But that's what Ann just said is very key. Remember, our topic is act like a business. We talked about how do you think about your career like a business. what's your elevator pitch, right? When you get 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes with that person that's really critical, have you thought through what's your value proposition? What are you saying? You're not walking up to them and going like, blah, 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 you know. You really have to say, hey, I'm Deb Tillet. I run the City of Baltimore's Technology and Innovation Center. We need people like you, and have I got some companies to show you, right? It just comes out like that. And that's what you have to think about you, right? So what's your elevator pitch?
I gave you mine.
Yeah.
The top list. I gave these guys my pitch. I actually met Deb, even though I was in ATC, our paths didn't cross. And sure enough, I met her at a networking event. I had crossed paths via email, and finally I got that opportunity to meet her in person and did the follow-up. The thing I'd want to add is, so, you know, you're in the grind every day. You're doing your job, and you forget the accomplishments you have. And I have said this and not always followed it, and I always regret when I don't listen to myself, which is write down your accomplishments. Don't wait till your resume needs to be put out or you want to go. And that's part of your brand. That's part of your elevator pitch. What have you accomplished? And in that same vein, I want to encourage you guys all to take credit. That's part of leadership. And there's a fine line. It doesn't mean you throw anybody under the bus. It doesn't mean that you don't elevate your peers with you. But be assertive. You do great things and be bold about them and take credit. Don't sit there and let somebody else take credit for the hard work you've done or what you've accomplished. And then when you've accomplished something big, whether it be just a skill or a project or something large for a company, write it down.
Right. Okay. I think I'm going to throw it open for questions. If you have a question, tell us who you are and what the question is. And yes, I think you were first, and we'll go here, number 2.
Yeah, hi, I'm Tiziana Barro, and my question is, I have been going to women conferences for the past 11 years, yet my board of advisor is primarily men. So my question to you is, how many are men versus women? And if they are women, how do you find them?
I think women need to do a better job at this. I totally agree with your statement, because I've actually experienced a lot of that same thing. But what happens with women in networking is that oftentimes the women that you really want to be your mentors, they're busy. I mean, they're running not only their own careers, but sometimes they're running their families as well. And it's really hard for them to carve out that extra time. So the amount of time they're able to give them versus sometimes a man who's, having his dinner made for him and have all these things going for him, it's sometimes more difficult for women to be able to carve out that extra time. But I think we all need to sort of recognize that and make time for each other. And also really foster each other's careers, because the good old boy network still exists and it's really robust. I've tried to get in on that one, just kind of like saying, yeah, you need more women in the good old boy network, because they do a really good job of networking. And I think we just need to carve out time to, strengthen our own roots and become better networkers ourselves.
That's a key point. It's called a good old boy network for an obvious reason, right? But we have to start thinking in those same kind of terms. You had the question.
My question is,
Who are you?
hi, I'm Angie Hylam. I have a content marketing boutique agency. Thanks, Cecily. And I just have a question about advisors versus mentors. Are they synonymous? Because I've heard about advisory boards, and I have a handful of people whom I consider mentors, which can be informal. So can you maybe break down how to actually go about that? Does the board meet concurrently? Like, is there a meeting? How do you set that up? How do I set that up? Because I probably have a bunch of people I can pick from right now, because I've been building those lists.
I'll just say they are two very separate things, although some of the responsibilities for what the mentor and an advisor do. But advisory board is very specific, and oftentimes legal's the wrong word, but you do, especially if you're an LLC, right? And you're a corporate, you need, it can be 1 or 2 or 3 people, but you need that, that advisory.
What I would say is an advisory board. I'm an advisor for a company as well. I know Joanne mentioned she is. typically there is something that we are getting from that company. It could be a kickback, it could be equity within that company. There's something more formal, again, on the legal vein,
Formal's the right
that you're
word.
getting. So there is an obligation for that person to advise you, and that is dependent. I've seen advisors operate in different capacities. It could be for a very finite task, it could be for a new product launching, or it could just be in general about the strategy, the position, etc. A mentor has no formal necessarily set up with you, and it's somebody that maybe you have more casual conversation. Maybe it's on a daily basis, a weekly, a monthly, however much time, and that kind of personal situation. I, with my advisors, have a very formal, specific setup with them. I have mentors that I sit there and I might talk about my personal life. Oh gosh, I'm cranking an 80-hour work week. I'm having a really hard time with my manager. Boy, my subordinates, gosh, they're just help me with this. And it relates a little bit of personal and work. It's a more casual relationship, so very separate.
Joanne? you
Same
wanna weigh
thing
in?
for me. So I had a board and an advisory board that attend the board meetings with an advisory board that attends the board meetings, but they can't vote on anything. Does that make sense? You have 3 people that can vote and then people that observe and advise. But my mentors are very, very different. So none of my mentors are in my advisory board
Would a
legally.
business coach count as an advisory board?
No, I mean, you're talking about some of the overlapping, right? They're performing some overlapping services, right? An advisor is saying, hey, you should do this and you should do that. The mentor is probably walking you through a little more emotional kind of interaction, right? And then a coach is, think of it in athletic terms. The coach is right behind you as you're running the marathon saying, don't drop over dead, drink that water and keep on going, goddammit, So that's really what we're talking about. They do overlap a little bit, but, yes, ma'am.
I'm Susan Shower-John, and I own Spiderweb Connections. We're an internet marketing firm on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. I've got 6 employees. They just happen to all be female. I've had males, but they just never worked out quite as well. What I'm really interested in is how to get venture capital. It is difficult. We have a software program we're writing that is proprietary, that is SEO-based for the small business. And I think it is our chance to take on Squarespace, and I feel very confident about it. I find I need probably a mentor or an advisor in terms of how to get the ear of a venture capitalist, because I don't think that I present for them something that they recognize. A 55-year-old woman coming is not like a young male business student coming along, and I've been to a few of these, where I think these venture capitalists sort of see themselves in these younger guys and say, that guy looks just like I did.
Yes.
He's going
Yes.
places. Because he sees himself in that. They don't see themselves in me. And I've got, right now, 6. In another year, I'll have a dozen people who are really depending on me, and I really want to take this software to market. I would love some advice on that.
I mean, you have certainly, and I'll throw it to you in a minute, you have certainly identified something that is a critical issue. I would suggest, and then Ann has a point of view, I know, but I would suggest that, first of all, you have to have a little more confidence in yourself, right? So you need the path, you need to be made introductions to some of these VCs, and then you have to just say, you know what? I got it. I know what I got. And if you have a compelling story that returns on investment, right, for which you can, do the pitch, there's no reason after the first couple words out of your mouth that they aren't listening and wanting to invest their money. But, we could devolve all day long, but go ahead, Ann.
Okay,
I know you have
I'm
a
about to
personal
leap
story.
out of my chair because we're about the same age. I actually live on the Eastern Shore too. And it was the most difficult thing in my company. We luckily now have raised over $1.5 million, but it took almost 4 years to get there. And the way I ended up doing it was first and foremost, getting the business plan. In fact, I entered a business plan competition and I won that. So that got me a little bit of visibility. And then I used that as currency to go out and get a TEDCO grant. So then we went to the TEDCO. Being in an incubator was also a big help, being in the Emerging Tech Center, because they were constantly introducing us to people and assisting with that networking process. And then we went and started going for the Tech Buzz events and the Cooley Capital Call events, just to get those pitch competitions and getting our name out there. And what happens in those pitch competitions is they often get a stack of applications of all men. And they're going, ooh, we need the token female. So it actually puts you in the short stack by being a woman. That's where you kind of get a little bit of a extra edge there. And so I ended up, I think for that reason than anything else, getting on those short lists. And then promoting your background and your expertise and really making sure that shines. And then there's lots of different state programs. The Volt Fund was one that we were lucky enough to get funding from. And those were some kind of the early steps we took to get on the radar screen of the angel investors that we really wanted to start attracting.
Now, on the Eastern Shore, do you know Mike Filkey and the economic development folks? Yeah.
Yes.
He can help you a lot. And then, there are other ways
He
to
can have
connect.
done the business competition with him, I think, and the Eastern Shore business plan competition, of course, was won by a couple of young guys. Western Shore.
The hatchery, that's okay.
Yeah.
But
But
it wasn't hatchery, it was
Yeah.
Nuvu.
okay,
Oh,
but
yeah,
don't
Nuvu, yeah.
Thank you.
don't
I
give
wouldn't
up.
have given him money,
No,
but
I
that's
have
okay.
no intention.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, what
I mean, 'cause we're
each
like-
of these I've learned, and,
Yeah.
and with Buzz Tech or BuzzFeed, whichever
Tech
was
Buzz.
Tech Buzz.
Right.
I applied to that, it was turned down as a speaker, and I found myself saying, I'd like to know what it was I was supposed to have said.
Yes, and that's,
Because what I have works, I apparently don't know how to verbalize it.
well, I also went and created a video for my app so that people could see it and visualize it, because it was so hard to pitch at times. So having that little brief video where people can sort of better understand all the things that you're doing and how you're different from your competition, really showing how you're different from your competition is key. But I will say, back in 2010, when I first started pitching the idea for Same Grain, I had people telling me, there's already Facebook in that space, there's never going to be anything else. And these were high profile business experts in this area, and they said there'll never be anything other than Facebook. And first of all, I knew they didn't understand what Same Grain was, because we're nothing like Facebook. But at the same time, back in 2010 when I was told that, since then there has been Pinterest, Instagram, Snapchat, Periscope, Yik Yak, companies that have million and billion dollar valuations in that same space. So those experts are wrong. So trust your gut. Don't always listen to experts.
Right. Anybody else? You got a question? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, LaToya Staten, Chief Disruptor Collaborator. I have a question. So you talk a lot about business advisory courses, mentors, but how do you convert those into advocates? Because a lot of times when you're starting accounting, you're in the space, you can have mentors to guide you, but how do we find that one woman or that one person that will really advocate for you as
You gotta come and be an ETC company, because what I tell my companies is I would cold call the Pope for you. That's what we do. You need people that are gonna be that interested in what you do, and those advisors or mentors should not be there for you if they're not like that. That's right. Right? I can't give you the how-to. I don't know, Joanne?
Some of it's that they just need to work with you for a little while, and once they've met you for a few times and they've seen the progress that you've made, then they will advocate for you, because their reputation is also on the line. So it's very difficult to advocate for somebody that you haven't worked with for a while, or you haven't seen their progress, or you don't understand them. So you need to give them the communication
They need to be a believer,
and the data points that they can. If you feed them the data points to be your advocate, then they will do it. But it'll take a little bit of time, and you need to push it out to them, in my experience. I do have some feedback on the fundraising, if that's helpful. So I think these are the things that I did that worked well for me. I think you have to have a huge funnel, so treat it as a sales pipeline. Look at where capital came from in your areas, the angel groups, and list them all, and look at who they've invested in that you could have a connection to. Reach out to them on Twitter, LinkedIn, email, follow their blogs, do everything that you can for the community online. And then before you get the introductions to them, put your pitch deck together. You've got 6 minutes, 10 PowerPoints, and go and find an investor that will not invest in you. And give them your pitch, one PowerPoint at a time, and then say, what's wrong? So I found the highest investor, and I said, I want you to pretend that I'm in the room, and I want you to tell me on every screen why you won't invest in my company. And what I did is he told me on every screen why I won't invest in this, and my idea was good. It had the right statistics, it had the right metrics, but my language was wrong. So it's not because I was English, my terminology wasn't an investor. I wasn't speaking in investor terms. And so everything he said to me, I wrote down his words, and then the next pitch I went to, all I did was I learned his words, and I spoke his words, and I got through to the pitch thing. And so that was huge for me. And then I think the biggest thing that you must do before you get introductions to anyone is interview people and try and get a meeting with them, not to pitch to them, but to understand what they want. So ask them, do you have money? So I can't tell you how many angels wasted my time and they had no money, and I left just absolutely, I wanted to slit my wrist, I wanted to stick a pen in my eye, I felt like a failure, and these people had no money, and I found they were just learning from filling their portfolio. So do you have money? How much are you investing? Who are you investing in? To get your money, what metrics do I need to have? Do not get an introduction to somebody unless you know that you can meet their requirements, because I wasted so much and my time. You waste their time, you waste your time. You must do that. And then when you understand what they need, write your goals down. Okay, I need 10,000 users. They must convert at 3%. I don't. Yours is a B2B model, but I must have, 5 letters of. I must have 5 LOI. I've got to have some kind of intention, or I've got to have some kind of customer, some kind of revenue, and this is my pipeline, blah, blah, blah. And then when you have that, then the only way you can get to them is through an introduction. So you must, while you're doing this, build this network. I think, who was it? One of you said, build this network around. If you've got the network that you've been building around these people, then these people will start to introduce you. It could be an attorney, an accountant. My accountant actually does all mine.
You need to learn to speak their language. It's a foreign language, and you do. And Joanne hit the nail right on the head, right? When you talk to an investor, it is a completely different way of expressing your business metrics. Again, ROI, how you will be successful, which will make them successful. You got to learn that, right? You got to understand that and learn that. Any questions? Anybody else?
I have a comment to add back. Oh,
Go.
sorry. I was just going to say to the earlier question about guys and girls versus, let's just lump them together, advisors, mentor, etc. So we were actually talking about this before we started here. I came from, a guy's kind of network. I had brothers, I was a tomboy, I was the only female analyst at ad.com, surrounded by men. I was raised with you're no different, you can do anything a guy does, and I don't see gender. I never really have, but I've embraced my gender. So I've naturally gotten a lot of male advisors just because that was initially my comfort zone, to be honest. And so I've diversified it a lot by just reaching out, and when I get those intros that I talked about earlier, Deb was one of them, and man, I heard her name, and I capitalized on it the minute I could, and would seek advice and opportunities. What I would say to you when you get those opportunities, this is crucial, and Anne spoke about people are busy. I'm busy, she's busy, whether it be just with your current job and family and personal obligations. I also am looking out, and you spoke about it, you have your 6 employees. I'm looking out for my employees. I spend a lot of time and to help mentor them and foster them and raise them up. So if you get an introduction, whether it be within your company or external to your company, come prepared. It's my biggest piece of advice, I think. 1, know that person's background. Go through their LinkedIn. Man, every little line. Just like you would if you're interviewing a candidate and looking through their resume. Do they know anybody you know? It's good to name drop once in a while. Hey, I worked with Eric, and you work with Eric, and because there's a little bit of brand affiliation, which can put that credibility.
The blog.
Fast forward a little bit of the time to get to know you. The other thing is know about their companies. what is not just their background, maybe they're advising, maybe if it is a VC, they have a portfolio that is similar to yours. I was guided to that, switching into EDU and interviewing with the VC for our company of know all about their EDU companies and their tech companies and make the translation for them. So come to these meetings, it's similar vein of the elevator pitch, with a purpose. Why are you talking to them? Don't just go there and say, yeah, it's nice to meet you. Yeah, okay.
Make sure you have an ask.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's an ask. What piece of advice do you need? What are you seeking from them? Don't be too bullish. Be respectful in that request, but know a purpose to that meeting if you have 5, 10, 20 minutes. Because if it's just a nice to meet you and this is my background and hi, thanks for your time, that's not going to leave a lasting impression versus somebody who comes determined with a goal, has a purpose, what they need, how can I help them?
Right.
I think that was probably after our first meeting, Deb said, okay, what am I doing for you? What do you need? And she followed up in 2 seconds for me, but I had to have that ask and that purpose for my meeting.
The other thing I would say, and then I know you had a question, is this is really hard. If it wasn't so hard, there'd probably be more of you out there, and we might, but it's really hard. And so not only are you doing the business of doing your business, but you're doing all of this other stuff, right? Which is making sure that the network is there, that you know what you're following up for, that you know who you want to follow up with. And nothing is too crazy. So yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm not, I don't have a business.
What's your name?
My name is Tatiana. I'm
Okay.
a graduate student here at the school. And when I listen to even how intentional you are in asking for feedback and what is actually wrong with presenting yourself, I worked only a couple of years in tech support and only with men too. And my question, myself by basic, how do you know, or in your early years, what you actually wanted to do in the tech world? Like in my case, I'm new in this, and I'm just doing my master's now, and I do want to have a career in technology, but what advice would you give? Did you always knew what
It's okay that you don't know what you want to do. No, I mean, it's okay. My first business I started myself was fashion photography, right? We traveled all over the world taking gorgeous photographs. And when that ended, somebody said, you want to be the director of marketing at a computer gaming company. And when I said, well, sure, what's a computer game, right? I don't know. How do you know? Once I figured that out, I never looked back, right? So, I don't know. Joanne?
Well, I agree. I don't think you always know.
You don't
I think
know.
your path takes you. But
Yeah.
it's nice if you can find something that you really love and really enjoy, because you have to do it all day, every day. So I would say if something makes you unhappy, or some people in that environment make you unhappy, only you can own it. So you can change your path if things are not right or making you unhappy by saying, I'm not happy, I don't like these people, they make me miserable, or I don't like the job, it makes me unhappy. Only you can own that, only you can change it, and you have to take the direction to change it, and then you'll find through these different paths those different
I also think it's generational. 62 years old, I didn't know what I wanted to do, however many years ago, right? And I thought I wanted to be a talking head on television. Well, that didn't last very long, right? But you don't know. But you take opportunities. Any opportunity that comes your way, if you don't seize it, if it's something that you enjoy, right?
Find your passion. Find something you're really,
Yes.
really passionate about. And
Right.
then along the way, as you're exploring, stay curious. Be as curious as you can, because unfortunately, as we age, we lose that curiosity that we had when we were young kids. But find the ways to, kind of explore things, explore conversations, explore new people when you're networking and getting out there, and just, and then also, if you see an opportunity to start your own business, if there's an area that you think is ripe for disruption, go for it. Think of creating a business that might be around something that you can disrupt.
It's funny, I see like a lot of nodding heads to your question around the room, sitting back here. And I gotta tell you, I think I was like 23, not too long out of college, and I was asked by my COO at that point, hey, what's your 5-year plan? This is my COO. I was nothing in this company. I'm like, my 5-year plan, I have no idea. I actually was a biology major. I was headed off to med school. And I did a pharma consulting gig, and I did that for 2 years and realized I still wasn't ready to go to med school. I'm from an all-medical family. I'm the black sheep that veered off. And I had an opportunity for a cool company at .coms. I was young, and you got to wear jeans, and I didn't know what I was getting into. And I showed the right skills, and I said, I can apply my skills. I can do this. And I got it. I'm like, this is awesome. And then this is that time, or what do you want for 5 years? I'm like, I don't know, be successful and a leader. It's okay. But you've got to grasp on what I would also say besides your passion is the skills that you know you're good at, that come easily, that you want to excel at, and you want to help and contribute back. And that's how you take your leadership to the next level, is what you're good at, and you embrace those and you capitalize on them. And then the path does veer a little bit. I'm an ed tech, and I've been 15 years in ed tech. How did I correlate that? You have to make jumps, you have to take risk, you take any opportunity. And it's okay to get into something, by the way, and try and go, I don't like it, and quickly change.
I would also really capitalize on that. I think we've done this generation a disservice, and we've expected that in college and right out of college that you will make that lifelong decision.
No.
Not going to happen. And churning, well, some people don't like to see the churn on a resume. I would suggest if it's substantive and you can back it up, it's okay to be here for 3 years. And it's okay to start this company and have it not work, but go back and do something else. We don't let you guys do that anymore, right? And that's wrong. And I don't know that, the 4 of us can necessarily change it, but you have to figure out what your strengths are, go for those strengths, and then, hire for or compensate for the things that you're not going to be good at. I don't know. One last question. I think we're getting near the, okay, let's go here, here, and here. Go.
And I'm here with my friend Maribel, who I've worked with for about 10 plus years. We both started off as graphic designers and have since branched a little bit. She is more of a design manager and I'm more of a project manager. And we both reached a point in our careers where we're pretty much solid middle management, where we've, between the 2 of us, amassed about 50 years worth of experience. And we have a very large circle of influence, but we don't have authority, or at least the authority that maybe we're ready for. So what would you say to someone who is looking to sort of climb the ladder a little bit? Do you have to change jobs to do that necessarily? Or, any advice?
I'm happy to talk about it. So I had a point, I was a director level, I wanted a VP level. I asked at that point my C and said, what do I need to do? I think I'm here. I'm up here. And he very quickly said, you got a lot to learn. And I said, okay, tell me. So what I would say is the executives, the management, the levels above you might not be great managers. They might not be great coaches. And you have to sometimes pull that out of them. Most people are not embracing of, let me tell you all the stuff that I learned and bring you along with me. So you've got to sit there and go, here's where I want to be. How do I get there? And if, I don't know, it just takes time. No, I want to know tangibly what I need to, how do I function? Who do I surround myself? What are the activities you expect here? And then go do it. And just start going. Now, to your question of job change, if they can identify what you need to do and they won't support you, you don't have the opportunities to take advantage to do those tasks, you might have to make a jump. But you have to explore that within your company because you are proven there. You've strutted your stuff, you've achieved a certain level, you have amassed people below you that have embraced you and you have authority over. And so you want to continue on that path. Don't just ditch it because then you start a little bit new to raise yourself up.
You might also have to, I don't know how big a company you're currently with, you might have to find a much smaller company, right? Where the levels of management are not there. But your years of experience allow you to walk into a position that does give you a VP level, that does give you a director level, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Tracy Hansen, and I've been in sales for 6 years now in a sales and marketing role. But my question is regarding connections with other people, so it's kind of a two-part question. The first would be, obviously men have the old boys club and are try to break into it and play more golf, and I'm not really good at golf, to be genuine in that.
I can only putt.
I can't golf either.
Yeah, I putt.
So my question is, can we create, or have you tried to create the equivalent for women? Wondering if that could be a way to go, or if you feel we need to involve men, because obviously that's the other half of the population. The second part would be, do you feel it's more important to meet a lot of different people, or meet some new people and then foster the relationships that you already have?
Interesting questions. Anybody?
I would keep trying to meet as many people as possible.
Yes.
I think the wider you cast that net, the more opportunities can come to you through that. And then there'll be certain people that that you really connect with through that process, and then you want to definitely foster those relationships more and get to know those people. But it's going to take going to lunches and meeting people for coffee and also getting to find what other common threads you have. Sometimes when you're networking, if you find like you're both horse lovers or you're both have these things in common, those other thread connections will actually help you to elevate those relationships.
I don't play golf either. My father, when I was a little girl, said, "You need to learn golf because, boy, that's where networking is." And I don't, and I stink at it. I have found I do belong to a couple women's networking groups, and it rides the line to your question of do you involve men or not. There have been some not so great women's groups that it's rah-rah and women and it's a little, I think, overcompensation for my comfort level of, forget men, we don't need them. There is balance. There's balance on both
But
sides.
Kerry, you know why you need them? Because they're still, I don't care what you say, in the positions of power.
That's right.
So if you want to get what you want, then you do.
Yeah.
Have to talk to them, you have to learn their language, you have to speak their language, right? So here we are on the stage, we told you to link in. Okay, that's fine. We're one of, what did we say, 1/8 the amount, okay? So you do have to have that balance. The men still are important and can make those connections for you. And if you selfishly want what you want, then you make those connections any way you can, right? Because you are about you. That's what I would say. And we have one more question over here. I can't remember.
Down here.
Oh, down here. I'm sorry.
I'm Celia Paulson. I'm representing the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education. And I'm thinking of my little 9-year-old niece who loves to code and loves to engineer. But she's terrified of going into this field because it is male-dominated. What would you say to her?
I would say have her go to Tech Girls and go through their training. So I teach a class there, and they're full of their peers and they're some of the best business ideas. And they're taught by men and women. And I think if you can put her in an environment that she can, watching them, they learn because they're fixing a problem and they understand why they're doing something. If you can put her in an environment that she understands why she's doing something, she won't care if she won't care. I also have brothers and was in a male environment. She'll be gender neutral. She just won't think about being in that environment.
And also tell her, embrace that. Heck yeah, she's the only woman there. Power to her. That's awesome. She should be really proud. And yeah, it's intimidating and it's scary. That's why she has you. That's why she has her people that are her parents and you and her family saying, you're smart, you can do it. Give her the training and then give that positive reinforcement. My parents still do. They're excited about me being here today. It was the best Facebook post I ever did. Embrace it.
And it is getting better. It's gotten a lot better since I got started in this field. And it's slowly. So hopefully by the time she's of age, everything will be fixed. Right?
Well, thank you. Thank you all for listening to us. I want to thank Joanne, Kerry, Ann, and you guys. Dress rehearsal's over. Go get them.
Thank you.